music, they have a whole science, and they know that they're having an impact on people. Al-Farabi wrote a book called Kitab al-Musiqa al-Kabir, and in that book he gives you the maqamat to use that where you can make people laugh. The section on singing and music, and so inshallah we'll look at a little bit more detail on that, because it's an important section. It's obviously a problem, and it's always a topic of a lot of debate and discussion amongst Muslims. So he says, كَذَا غِنَاءٌ لِحَرَامٍ دَاعِي وَغَيْرُهُ يُكْرَهُ كَالسَّمَاعِ. The ghina in Arabic means generally singing, but because the word musiqa is from a Greek term, museke, the Arabs took musiqa from the Greek. So the Arabs generally, ghina can mean music. They also use the word tarab for something that excites you. One of the words for the musician is mutarib, or the singer is a mutarib. So we get in the English language and out of the French, troubadour is probably from that derivation. So he's basically saying that that if it's something that calls to the haram, then it's like that, and other than that it's makruh. And then he says kasama'i. Sama', if people noticed last night at the dinner when the waiters walked by and they were all talking amongst each other, Sri Abdul Fattah said, he stopped singing and said, Sama'. He was basically letting them know this is called Sama', because Sama' means to listen or audition, A-U-D-I-T-A. And so Sama' is a tradition that arose out of the Islamic spiritual tradition, which was where people would sing qasa'id. Now the Prophet ﷺ undeniably, and nobody could deny this, had people amongst him who did sing, and Anjasha was one of them, Amr ibn al-Akwa was another. In the Sahih of Imam Muslim, he's there, he sang for the Sahaba in front of the Prophet ﷺ. We know the two jariyas that were singing, some young girls were singing on the Eid day, and Abu Bakr came in. We know in Tirmidhi and Ahmad and Bayhaqi and others, the black woman who swore an oath that if the Prophet returned safely, she would bang her drum and sing, أضربوا الدف وأتغنى. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if you made that إذا نظرتي, right? So if you made that nadar, if you made that vow, then fulfill it. And she began to bang her drum over the Prophet ﷺ's head, and he allowed that. And then in one riwayah, Abu Bakr came in and she kept playing her drum and singing. Then the next one, Ali came in, and then Uthman came in, and then when Omar came in, she stopped, put it behind her, and then sat on her drum. And the Prophet ﷺ was amused by that and said that, even shaitan's afraid of you. And that implies, and some of the scholars took from that a negative thing, but the scholars, and that hadith is considered a mushkil hadith, it's a problematic hadith, because you cannot make an oath in something that's prohibited, and you don't fulfill an oath if you made an oath to fulfill something that was haram. You don't fulfill that, because it's not a vow, rather a nadar. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that, and in the hadith when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came in, he said, "Amizmarum min mazamir ash-shaytan." Is this a pipe from the pipes of shaitan? And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Da'ahuma fa innahu Eid." Leave them alone because it's an Eid. So, in other words, and in fact, the ulama who argue in favor of the permissibility of these things say that Abu Bakr was making a ruling over the dominant aspect of music, which is it is a mizmar from the mezamir of shaitan. And if you look out there around the world and just look at what music is used for and the people involved in music, it's pretty clear who's running the industry. Like one of Billy Joel said, if the devil had an industry, it'd be the music industry. Well, little does he know, he does have an industry, and it is the music industry. So that's just a reality. And anybody that studies the history of a lot of these things, you'll see the type of debauchery that's involved in these things. And some of the artists are some of the lowest creatures that walk the planet. I mean, really, you just have to look at their faces after a career in music to see what type of lives they've lived. I mean, I actually wanted to take a photograph of Yusuf Islam and then put it next to it, one of the Rolling Bones, just to let people see what happens when somebody takes a spiritual path and what happens when somebody doesn't, right? And it's all you have to do, proof's in the pudding. Because, like somebody once said, at 50, everybody has the face they deserve. Really. So basically that's what he's saying. Now, the sama' is a tradition that the ulama differed on, undeniably, and some of the ulama prohibited. In fact, Ibn Arabi argued that sama' by his time was no longer permissible because of all of the things associated with it. And you will see in tasawwuf, you will see every generation talks about how the tasawwuf is over and the people are gone. Imam al-Junayd was already making complaints. So this is part of the overall decline and fall of spirituality in its curvilinear. It's not really curvilinear, it's just it reached its pinnacle with the Prophet ﷺ's community, and after that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يأتي زمان أو يوم إلا والذي بعده شر منه حتى تلقوا ربكم, which is a sound hadith that no time will come or even a day will come that is not worse than the one that preceded it until you meet your Lord. And some of the people want to limit that to the time of the Sahaba, but it's simply not true, because every generation is one generation further away from the Prophet ﷺ. So there has to be the distance. Anas radiallahu anhu said that we didn't finish burying the Prophet ﷺ until we were already feeling the naqs in our hearts, and in a riwayah, ankarna qulubana, that we were actually denying our hearts. Just his physical presence, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was so important to their spiritual well-being, so that you can see, and that's a proof of the Prophet, how quickly it fell apart. I mean, these people that he brought together that were completely dispersed, كنتم على شفا حفرة من النار. They were literally on the brink of a hellfire. And the Prophet ﷺ came, united this people that had never been united before. And within a very short period of time, they were fighting each other again. So it's not surprising. And the Prophet ﷺ, when Abu Bakr filled that vacuum that was left by his physical disappearance, when he filled that vacuum, it's like coming into the hub, that empty space that keeps the wheel, because there's no ego there, it's the egoless space. That's what keeps the thing turning. And so Abu Bakr was able to come in, and then Omar came in. By the time Uthman gets there, the torque is so great because of all these new people come into Islam, and they don't have the spiritual qualities that the earlier people had. And so Uthman is having a more and more difficult time holding it together, and then it begins to come apart, and then Ali comes in, and by that time the community is fragmented. So the Prophet ﷺ, getting back to this, the deterioration of the quality is something that has been remarked on since the beginning.